Hey, 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 welcome to another Valley Forged. I put this together as not only a group of maybe first projects that you would do. Say, my last video, I was like, how to start a laser business from zero. Well, what's the first project you're going to do when you get a laser? And not only that, as a business, and I'm literally made this for myself, I have a show this weekend, and it's not one to sell at, it's one to show. And what I'm trying to do is show people what, if you got into lasers, what you can do. And so I put this together to put out on my table, and basically it has your name here or your logo here so that I can show other people what can easily be done. And this works really well, say if you're at a farmer's market or something and you put these out and somebody can look at them and go, oh, all right, well, I'll take 100 of these. You just put my logo here, right? And so that's the kind of basic reason for that for a business. Always good to have with you. You could take it to businesses, put it out, and they could order them. It's great. Also, if you just bought a laser, and you really want to hone your skills with your software. Now, I'm going to be showing Lightburn, but this works with XCS. Use the SVG file. It will work with Xtool. It will also work with Glowforge, the SVG portion of this. But as far as I am going to be showing Lightburn. I tell people if you are going to get into a business with lasers, that Lightburn is the better way to go because you could just take all your files with you. You can design. I designed all of these in Lightburn. Would have been much harder to do in other softwares. So once you're super familiar with Lightburn, you can make all your designs, but then it's already there. It's already ready for you. So I think it's a great way to go. And these files are made to change. And I think that's one of the great things about your first file, or just having these basic files, is that they're easily manipulatable to fit your situation. So once you've kind of mastered all of these, then you can change them and make them into whatever fits for you. And so I'm going to go through them one at a time, and I'm not only going to say what they are, but how you should change them, may change them, why I put them in here, and why they're really good as a first project or as a business project. So, of course, like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff, because I'm going to be taking from zero all the way to success, and whatever that means for you, I'm going to try and help you do that. So I think the first basic one, and I have packs on Etsy for a lot of these things that go more in depth. But these are the basics. And one of the first things I always say, make coasters. It's kind of like art you put on the table, and it could be just about anything. And you can make them very cheaply. If you make mistakes, it's not such a big deal. Easy to change around, a great way to learn your software and learn how to make basic changes. And again, make mistakes. It's so important to make a lot of mistakes. And making mistakes on big projects, often it takes a lot more time and it costs a lot more money. Also, if you're going to sell a ton of something, say for a graduation gift or a big event, a lot of times they're going to want a bunch of coasters. And so you having that in your repertoire, being able to have a blank one on your table, just like this, that says your logo here, gets people's minds working. So what I put here is both the circle and the square, and with some just basic designs on them. You can put whatever you want. You could see right now I have it to where these are all using fill, so they're filled in. But you could change these to light cuts, some of them to cuts. make some changes. Just learn how your basic software works. Just going to turn these into lines, but then you're going to want that line not to cut, so you're going to want something a little different. You get what I'm saying here? Now, it also helps for you to learn, okay, how am I going to finish these? What kind of wood am I going to use? How does a different kind of wood look different? A lot of people do their projects in Baltic birch. I personally really don't like Baltic birch very much, but I made a couple of them here in Baltic. But if you try, say, a regular hardwood or a hardwood plywood, and just see the difference in how it looks to you and how you feel about it, how you feel about selling it. What do you think is going to work? What is the difference in costs? How much harder is it to cut on your laser? A lot of things like that. Working with MDF. Are you going to do this in layers? Typically, I would say when I'm working with 1/8 inch, I'm always using layers because maybe it goes in the sun or something like that, it gets warped. 1/4 inch is generally better. But hey, if you don't have a laser that's good at cutting 1/4 inch, what do? Well, you glue two pieces together, and that works super, super well for coasters. So what you could do with the coaster, see, this is the cork I'm going to show you in a minute, but what you could do is you just cut out a round of MDF, and then you can just glue that as your second layer onto the bottom of your coaster. Now you've got a thicker coaster, and then you can cut out some felt. So this is just regular felt, and glue that onto the bottom. So now that you have 2 layers of, if say the cork isn't here, now you've got 2 layers making that a 1/4 inch with some felt on the bottom. It looks great. It's fantastic. And it's actually the cheaper way to go when you're doing a bunch. But cork feels good, looks good. So I usually go with cork these days, but there are reasons why sometimes you're going to want to go with MDF as a second layer. I do it all the time for different projects. MDF often paints a lot better than wood. It looks a lot better in layered projects, things like that. So what we're doing is we're just getting used to using all these methods. So I would suggest not buying the cork, and I will show you though. If you're doing this for orders, it is probably best just to add that 50 cents in for each one and use the cork. And you can see I've ordered these. Here's 13 times. I have ordered a lot of these. And here's, say, a 20-pack round. Now, the reason why I made these coasters, this one is 3.75 inches, is because that's what fits perfect on this particular coaster with kind of the rounded edge on it. Now you can just get the 4-inch coaster, which is up here, 4-inch blank. And this is where all of the experience comes into play. Say you have a 12-inch wide piece of wood. You can't get 3 of these in a 12-inch wide piece of wood because you got some kerf, you got a little bit that's going to cut out. You're never going to get it exactly perfect. So say you're making 1,000 of these and you're using 12-inch wide by 19-inch or something wood, right? This is what typically I get mine from Craft Closet. And it comes in 12 inches. Maybe it's even slightly less because there is variation. So you're sitting here trying to make a whole bunch of these. Having it 3.75 inches actually to me even looks better. 4 inches is just a little bit big most of the time. And so I can cut three of these wide. They look great. It works great, and it saves me money. A little bit trickier when you go to the square ones. These are 4x4s. But again, I have made these 4 inches here, and you can see I have the rounded edges just like you would. But you're going to have to fit these to whatever you do. And that's part of the learning process. That's part of why I did things the way I did them. So I'm explaining this kind of a lot for each, a little bit less for each one as I start at least giving the basics. But I wanted you to know why I did what I did. And you can order these corks from Amazon. Generally speaking, they're somewhere around 50 cents a piece. So that's what I would add to my order for each one. Even in my head, you know, it doesn't mean you're saying, oh, it's 50 cents for this to be cork. But in my head, I'm saying, okay, that's going to cost me an extra 50 cents. How am I going to add that in? And it just makes life a lot easier just to be able to glue those on. Settings are up to you for your laser. So I wanted to mention that right away. You know, I have gotten comments in the past like, I love this file, but the settings were wrong. Well, yeah, how am I going to know what the settings are for your laser? And that is your first task when you start with a laser, is figuring out what your settings are for that particular type of material. So that's the first thing you're going to do. I'm going to leave a link below on how you make a test grid, and that's what everybody should do. After a while, you're not going to use a test grid anymore. You're probably going to cut a couple. You'll be like, okay, I know it's right around this amount, so I'm going to just make a couple of circles in a couple of different speed settings, and we'll see which one works the way I want it to work. But in the beginning, test grids are great to be able to get you kind of in the range of what you're trying to look for. So again, settings are on you. Your engraving settings, your cutting settings, settings for just making a score line. These are all things that come over time. And that's why I made this project. Because again, all of these are pretty small. They're great ones to make mistakes on. And if you're going to get into a business, these are all things you need to know how to do. And all of these I actually do sell. I mean, none of these are things that I'm just like, oh, you know, hey, this would look kind of cool. I mean, let's take this leather keychain. I think it's pretty much something that everybody should also learn how to work with is leather. Leather is kind of expensive, and it does require some different tools than you would use for all of your wood stuff. But it can be very profitable, and this may just be the thing that you love working with more than anything else. Kind of like me. I love working with leather. I love working with specifically Italian leather. Yes, it can be a bit expensive. I get mine mostly from Rocky Mountain Leather Supply these days just because the amount of choice they have, selection is just way better, and they're usually not out of stock of things. So I used to go to Buckle Guy a lot, but a lot of times they're just out of stock, what I want. And so that could make a big difference. But I tend to go with the vegetable tan Italian leathers, and after working with lots of different kinds of leather, I end up saving money because it's so consistent. The end products just end up always turning out for me. Whereas where I work with other leather, I kind of have to do this or that. You know, it's sometimes using cheap wood or cheap leather, just not worth it. I have a bunch of leather I got from Michael's at one point. I rarely ever use it. It's just sitting in there because it chars way worse and just doesn't look as good. But these are a few basic leather keychains. I usually use a pretty thin leather, maybe like a 3-ounce or something close to that, and works super good, super easy. And this is both a 2-sided or a 1-sided leather keychain. You can see here, this is where you're going to put your rivet, and once it's folded over, it will be perfect, and then you just put the key ring in. In fact, here is one right here. And this is one that actually is sold in stores. And turned out really good. I use a higher end key ring, and very simple. I can make hundreds of these per day. I think the only thing that would hold me back is the amount of the leather would cost, right? Great first project, great way to go. And these little heart key rings are pretty nice too. And great learning project. And if you get them to the right store and you learn your craft, very profitable. And again, reasonably small. I mean, if you start out trying to make a wallet, which, my wallets are super popular. I sell so many of those files. They are reasonably easy to do, but I wouldn't do it as your first project with leather, just so that you could get to know this isn't going to waste nearly as much leather if you make a mistake. And it's going to help you get your settings down for when you do make the bigger projects. Now, I also included a classic keychain. Say if you got a Glowforge, this would be great for acrylic, but I make lots of them in wood. Here is one in wood right here. Your name here, it's the exact same one. Turns out great. And the nice thing about this one is it will kind of get you to start working with curved letters. That's an important thing to know. Different sizes, different ways of doing things. You're going to have a score line. You see all these black ones are score lines. And then you've got a cutout line. So you got to make sure that your settings are a little different for just putting a line in something, vice doing an engrave in something and then cutting it out. So this is a great project to teach you lots of little different things. If you're first starting out, it's also a great thing to have on the table because you never know. A hotel comes walking by your table at some show and says, hey, I need a bunch of those for my hotel or whatever, right? So again, it's really great to have these things out if you're having a business. So many times you may even lose money at a show, but end up making a customer for life. The bottle opener. I sell a ton of this pattern on Etsy. This is a basic your name here. I've sold many of these to businesses, to bars and restaurants and things like that. They can personalize them for each of their employees or different things. So very useful, very great for maybe a big banquet or something where they're going to have bottles. Who knows? You never know until you put it out on your table and you say, hey, I make these. This is a 7-inch bottle opener. Again, you can get these on Etsy. I make a whole video actually on doing pretty much all of these things, but bottle openers in particular have been very, very good for me. And this particular design has worked really well. It's something that I think everybody should have in their repertoire. And learning how to put these together, again, is going to show you just one more technique of gluing it to the steel middle. It's a technique. It takes time, but once you learn it, very, very good to have. I'll pop up some finished ones here so you could see, but you can literally do anything that you want. Speaking of other great basics, this is just a basic business card. You could do the anodized aluminum ones you get from Amazon and just put whatever you want on them. You can cut these out in wood, which I have done here. Oh, I didn't show the finished bottle opener, the one with your name here. I'm sure I showed a bunch of other ones. Here's just a basic, I put a logo on there, your logo here, just to show. I put this out on my table, show people, hey, I can make these for you. Just basic cards with some interesting designs on them. Again, you can make this into a whole wooden business card. Just it doesn't mean you have to have 1,000 of these, but maybe you just have a few of them that you hand out to people you just want to make sure they're not going to just toss your card. And here's the actual, this is actually a leather keychain I made with the Your logo here on it. Again, very simple. Something most people don't realize they can do with a laser. I kind of made it up myself. I'd never actually had seen somebody do it. And then I realized, hey, I looked it up on Etsy. There are other people making greeting cards, mostly for not lasers, but a lot of it will work better on a laser than it will on, say, like a silhouette or a cricket. It will actually work better on a laser when it comes to cutting out the paper. And this is a greeting card. Now, I make most of my greeting cards now myself. Mother's Day, Christmas, birthdays, things like that. I make my greeting cards with my laser because I like to do everything with my laser. I love lasers. What can I say? And it's also a great way to learn what you're doing. So I go to, say, a craft store and I get some heavier paper, something, whatever you feel is going to be right for your card size, for making a card. And any of it will work. I get the colored paper. I have a bunch sitting around right here. And, just basic, different, it comes in packs of different colors. And if you etch on it, it will make different colors. So here's, I don't know if with the lighting you can see that okay, but it etches on it just fine. This is just basically a light lasering on the paper. And then you can cut lots of things out and show to the backside, which I glue in. There's two of them on the screen there. You would make two of these, and these will glue into the inside. Now, if those are a different color, which they should be, than the outside of the card, well, if you had made cuts, well, those cuts will be the color of the paper that you glue in the inside. So there's literally unlimited amount of ways that you can do that. I made this particular card size to go with standard envelopes that I get from the craft store that add a little bit of, beauty to that. And it's just a fun thing to learn how to do. I have a whole video on making these, but this is a nice basic one that gives you everything. You got a little score line right here. And you can see what these are. These are the tool tabs at the end, you see. And they don't show up. They don't do anything. I have they won't frame. They won't print. They won't do anything. All they're there is for a message for you to say, hey, this is a score line. You really just want to make a light line so that it makes it easy to fold. That's what that's for. And of course, this says glue inside ×2, so you're just going to make two of these and glue them to the inside, obviously. Just because this is right now a fill doesn't mean it has to be a fill. So if you look at it right now, you see all this is filled in. But you can experiment and, say cut out part of this flower or cut out part of this or that, and you'll just learn. You'll say, oh, okay, well, this works, this doesn't work. You're using paper. It isn't gonna take up all of your money. I mean, this kind of paper isn't super cheap, but compared to wood or leather or anything else, it is a great way to learn and to refine what you can do. And you're probably going to make a ton of mistakes on paper. It's not super forgiving when it comes to your settings, which I think is a great thing. Again, it's a great way to learn. And then the last thing I put in the pack is, it's kind of just like a greeting card, but the main reason is I put these out on my table and they go straight to my shop. And this is a QR code. And I figured everybody is learning or if you have a business, you're going to need to know how to make QR code. I don't use regular business cards anymore. I put out my QR code on my table. People can just take a picture of it. They can, go straight to my website, go straight to anything. But I also make these little round tuits. And that's what this is right here. And it says you finally got around to it. And I got this from church when I was a little kid, and I never forgot it. And people don't throw these away. They may give them to somebody else. They may do something, but you don't usually see these, thrown around like you do business cards. And on the back, it has my QR code. I think it's a great little tool for everybody to understand and know, and you can change this any way that you want to. As far as making a QR code, it's fairly simple. You will go to Tools, and then you will go to Create QR Code. And then you will just make a square of whatever you could make it any size you want, because you're going to end up changing that. And then you're just going to post in whatever URL that you want, and you see it populates. And then all you got to do is hit OK. And that is not the last step. So as soon as you do it and you look at it, you will see this is probably not finished, right? Make sure that this is set to fill. There, now this looks correct. So that's all you're going to need to do. And then you just resize this to whatever you want. Maybe put your name below it. And this will be good to go. I think might be the best lesson anybody gets out of this whole video sometimes. Just to learn how to make a QR code. And it's so simple. And people will pay you to make these QR codes. A lot of the other people, the vendors and whatnot, they can't do this, right? I mean, you look at the people with all these different stores, they can't do this. They will pay you to make these for them. And so you make a really nice one for you that is a display, and you can, with your name here and all that kind of stuff, people will come by, other vendors will come by and say, hey, I want one of those. How much? So that is your own trick, is figure out how much you're going to charge for each thing. But making friends with vendors is a great, great idea, and they will tell you where the good shows are. Again, I think this is a good basic set for not only for starting business, for also learning your laser, learning how everything works. And I tried to make it as cheap as I could. Etsy takes a lot of that money. But I like to do things on Etsy just because it's easy for everybody. A lot of people have Etsy accounts, and they could just go there. They could peruse other things. Etsy has its own problems. A lot of people steal your stuff and redo it, but it's, I guess, about the best we got right now. But I would love to hear how all of this works for you. If you make this and say you're starting a business, you put it out and you get an order, let me know. I want to hear how it works. I mean, what we're trying to do with this channel is not theoretical, but practical. And I want everybody to succeed in whatever they're trying to do, whether it's trying to learn the laser or whether it's trying to build your business. I want to hear how it's going for you. And if you have any trouble with this file itself, let me know on Etsy. If you're having any other issues, I would love for you to leave a comment about it so that other people can also read it and maybe learn themselves. And I'm sure there's lots more on this subject. I'm sure I left some things out, but we'll try and leave comments below and figure that out. And I will see you in the next one. Love y'all.